Being the lonesome cowboy that I am, I don't play very many live service games. Never been much of an MMO guy. I'll occasionally play a mobile gacha while I'm taking a heinous crap, but I never get too deep into them. I do like questing with my homies, though. My competitive spirit is in the negative, so give me co-op or bust. Monster hunting, Elden Ringing, Bloodborning, the lot. It's a very pleasurable way to do some capital RPGing while talking turkey with my friends. People joke online that men can't have conversations like adults unless they're blasting goblins at the same time. I recognize this comment as being, at least in part, facetious, but it's not that different than any other kind of social activity. Going for drinks, playing mini-golf, riding a barbecue boat down Canary Wharf. These are all pretenses for spending quality time with those special people in your life. As we grow older and develop separate working hours and personal responsibilities, it becomes harder to get together regularly. Not to mention, the city in which I live has become so gentrified, a social night out at the local pub is sure to run you a cost that is not regularly feasible. So, why not turn to online gaming? You're engaging in a shared interest, you can enjoy your own drinks and snacks, and the magic of the internet negates any issues around travel logistics or couch space. Log on, hang out, blast your goblins, log off. It's not a replacement for skinship, but rather a complementary activity, and is absolutely one of life's enriching pleasures. Babylon's Fall was a friend quester developed by Platinum Games and released by Square-Enix on March 3rd, 2022. Brought to you, at least in part, by the team behind the beloved Nier Automata. You are a prisoner press-ganged into becoming a sentinel of Neo-Babylon. Alongside up to 3 pals, you ascend a massive tower, fail to matchmake with friend or rando alike, and blast goblins all by yourself. I have some questions about Babylon's Fall. Many wonder why it uses so many assets from Final Fantasy XIV, a charge that I found difficult to effectively corroborate with my own eyes since I'm no 14 master. But I'm assured by those in the know that from the architecture to armor sets, there's plenty lifted wholesale. I found an article from RockPaperShotgun covering a blog post from the now disabled Babylon's Fall website, which states producer Yosuke Saito and 14's golden boy Yoshi P came to an agreement to borrow assets to fill out the game's gear sets and environments. And you know what, fair enough. I don't think there's anything wrong with reusing assets. My favorite series is Megaten, and they've been reusing assets from 1995's Devil Summoner as recently as Strange Journey Redo in 2018. It's cool, it's fine. Maybe Babylon's Fall could have borrowed some better assets. Final Fantasy XIV is a game famous for its versatile dress-up system, yet absolutely none of the armor in Babylon's Fall looks good. But I'm the kind of goon who felt a little bit delighted in making my Sentinel look as tacky as possible. But maybe that's a matter of personal taste, and that's neither here nor there. A more prescient question would be, if they had to pillage 14's archives to fill out their already limited wardrobe, were Squeenix and Platinum even prepared to deliver a loot-based live service game from the get-go? Which brings me to another question. Was Babylon's Fall always intended to be a loot-based live service game? This is less clear. The game was first announced with a vague, limited animation trailer at E3 2018, boasting of a release date by 2019. Missing that date by a wide margin, a short gameplay trailer was shown at Sony's State of Play in December 2019, featuring a cinematic battle of a single character against a giant knight in shining armor. As the two clash blades, the minuscule sentinel manages to pull the knight's staggering greatsword from its hands with his spectral threads, which he then uses to cleave it in twain. Certainly neat, something that wasn't in the final game, and very unclear if Babylon's Fall was meant to be a character action game, an action RPG, a Souls-like, or what. And that's when the COVID-19 pandemic happened, screwing everything up. Babylon's Fall was quietly delayed, and I mean quietly, going radio silent until resurfacing in mid-2021, now explicitly labeled a multiplayer live service game. The fact that it took Squeenix 3 years from announcement to reveal this about Babylon's Fall, coupled with the limited gear supplemented by Final Fantasy XIV's archives, suggests this may have originally been intended to be a single-player game early on, not unlike how Grasshopper's Lily Bergamo ended up retooled into Let It Die. Though, please bear in mind, this is entirely speculation on my part. A friend and I managed to get into the closed beta test in mid-2021, and do you remember that period in the mid-2000s when every developer and their uncle tried to challenge Monster Hunter for the PSP ad hoc multiplayer crown? Wait, you didn't have a PSP?
PSP, 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 PSP.
Well, okay, that's fair. But I assure you this was a thing. Your Valhalla Knightses, your White Knight Chronicleses, your Phantasy Star Portables. But usually instead of fighting a big beautiful beastie, you fought just a bunch of dudes. These games were shonky, janky, and not well received. Playing the Babylon's Fall beta felt a lot like playing one of these ill-fated PSP games. You load into a hub town with a smattering of players, where you can talk to a few inconsequential NPCs and shopkeepers and manage your gear. Once you're ready to go, the beta allowed you to tackle the game's first 3 missions, each a different circuitous path through a ruined cathedral district, sprinting through nondescript hallways, picking up these conveniently placed little gold collectibles. I don't know what these are. I never figured it out. I don't think they're conches, the game's currency, because you're also picking up coins. You're occasionally opening treasure chests. Every so often, you'll come to one of these walls of blue shields where you have to pound on them to break through. I mean, these are particularly baffling and seem to serve no purpose other than artificially extend the stage by a few scant seconds at most. You're never under attack when you're smashing through them, and there's not any skill or time limit involved. They're just there. Breaking up your gentle jog are 4 or 5 discrete, mandatory combat encounters with a bunch of spongy mooks. Your loadout holds up to 4 weapons, 2 keyed to the face buttons for regular and heavy physical attacks, and 2 keyed to the shoulder buttons. These are chargeable spectral attacks, which deplete an energy bar with use, but can be used simultaneously with your physical attacks to extend your combos and do extra damage. They all float behind you, like 2B's weapons in Nier Automata. As it so happens, there's a lot of Platinum's back catalog in Babylon's Fall. You got your aerial combos of Automata, the Witch Time dodge of Bayonetta. There's even a consumable, simplified version of Metal Gear Rising's Zandatsu ability. All of these are clumsily implemented and achieve little more than reminding you of the studio's better games that you could be playing. Babylon's Fall was, in beta form, less than the sum of its parts. Once the beta closed, Square-Enix polled players to get their impressions. And, to their credit, they took player feedback on board. Unfortunately, Babylon's Fall's issues are ultimately existential. Reducing the smeary, emulated oil painting graphics filter and adding enemy scaling based on party size were band-aids on a sucking chest wound of samey boredom. My opinion remained unchanged. This was not a game I was interested in buying. I imagine I wasn't alone here, as Babylon's Fall released the same day as Elden Ring, and inexplicably priced £10 higher to boot. Square-Enix even had the audacity to sell a digital collector's edition for an eye-watering £95, Season Pass not included, which came with a handful of cosmetic outfits. The numbers were so poor, the publisher felt it necessary to release a statement that the game wasn't dead within the first 3 weeks of release. Time-limited Nier Automata cosmetics coming soon, we promise! So I promptly forgot about it and spent the next 5 months of my life making a video about Monarch. Babylon's Fall was, throughout 2022, bandied about as the worst PlayStation 5 game. At the time of recording in March 2023, if we take a look at OpenCritic, Babylon's Fall sits humbly at 588 out of 592 ranked PlayStation 5 games. The 4 games below it are, in order, Asset Flip Indie Horror Sanity of Morris, maligned multiplayer free pack-in Resident Evil Reverse, eFootball, Konami's notoriously busted successor to their long-running Winning 11 series, and something called Succubus with Guns. knockoff. This isn't a real game. The point is, with the exception of Resident Evolve, these are some broken-ass vidya, and none of these games have the pedigree or the profile of Babylon's Fall. To put it crassly, as far as real games go, Babylon's Fall might well and truly be the worst PlayStation 5 game. And that in itself is pretty interesting. In May 2022, barely 2 months after release, it boasted one singular Steam player, and in late summer of that same year, Square-Enix announced that the game would be permanently discontinued on 28th February 2023, less than a year after its release. It wouldn't even be playable offline. Despite the £95 digital deluxe edition being sold the previous day, Babylon's Fall was pulled from all storefronts, as was its premium currency and battle pass. Game retailers around the world started giving away copies for free. Surely nobody would pay 60 bones for a game they wouldn't be able to play in 6 months, so how do you get rid of all that excess stock? In October 2022, Platinum CEO Inaba Atsushi apologized to fans for the disappointing news, but also reassured them that the failure of Babylon's Fall would not affect their plans for future live service games. It's an odd statement. I should hope that this experience would influence their future projects in some way. But then Inaba apparently pointed the finger at Square-Enix. Quote, "One of the reasons that we're not fond of our current situation that only limits us to game development, to be honest with you, in terms of any concrete reasons or the process that led to the conclusion of this title, you'd have to go ask Square-Enix about the details, unfortunately." End quote. It's a revealing statement, and one that raises questions for which we'll likely never have answers. This caused me to reflect on other high-profile service game shutdowns. I'd never really been part of a game that went through this. I spent a while playing Dragalia Lost while I was hiding in the toilets at work, but I fell off a few years before it ended. I really loved Onion Games' Dandy Dungeon, but my little heart was spared its loss when it was made available for sale in an all-in-one offline package. I thought about The Matrix Online and the kerfuffle surrounding its cataclysmic endgame event, where the servers crashed before anybody could see the big grand finale, and that's when I knew I had to be the one to chronicle the last days of Babylon's Fall. Surely it couldn't be that bad, right? My good buddy, collaborator, and occasional saboteur, EnemyPirin, set me up with a physical copy of Babby Fall in October 2022, and I set to work. I had 4 months to get to grips with this game and see what it had to offer before the final deadline. This is The Fall of Babylon's Fall. I'm your host, Babylon. The first time you load up Babylon's Fall, you're confronted with a few empty character slots. The screen warns you that once a character is created and a slot is filled, it can never be deleted. You will be a citizen of Babylon forevermore. A little odd, but I found myself somewhat appreciative of the permanence of your decision. So you create your character. You got a choice of 4 fantasy races, each with a bespoke ability that won't become apparent until after you roll credits. They're pretty much all the same. Character creation is very limited. You select from some prefab faces, a limited hair color palette, even more limited skin tones. There's not enough here to get lost in the nitty-gritty of character creation, so if you're me, you make the ugliest gal you can, and away you go. And now you're in the intro to Morrowind. You and your compatriots arrive in Babylon on a heavily armored boat, shackled together. You're scoundrels, ne'er-do-wells, crims, deported from your varied homelands and sent to Neo-Babylon, a de facto prison colony, to be press-ganged into becoming sentinels for the ruling class. You see, Babylon is currently beset by the Galu, a mysterious group of heavily armored, chaotic evil knights who descend from the tower at the center of Babylon to wreak havoc on the townsfolk. Rascals like you have been tasked with fending off the Galu, as well as exploring the tower to figure out what their deal is. As the ship pulls into dock, you're all subjected to the Gideon's Coffin, a sort of brass smartphone that attaches to your back. The process is violent and painful, and kills all but 3 of you: a vaguely Jamaican man named Gallagher, a vaguely Celtic woman named Sylvie, and yourself, the vaguely silent protagonist. With your coffins fitted, you enter the tutorial stage, run through the Galu-infested docks into town. Your Gideon coffin allows you to speak with your companions and your handlers at range. The three of you are urged on by a sinister masked man named Isham. He explains that Elysium, the Galu seat of power, is on to you as the newest Sentinels, and they'll be sending every Galu they can to stop you. Indeed, at the end of the tutorial, we're faced with a giant Galu, Diodorus, who demands we repent for we are unworthy of gospel. It's all very anime, JRPG, proper nouny pretentiousness. He kicks our butt, but a phantasmal, breathy woman appears before us to tell us it's not our time.
Now, Sentinel, bare your fangs in gracious wrath.
She bestows upon us the power of Dynamis, and we end up making Oh.
Sorry, you said queefs.
Queefs. We end up making queefs. I might leave that in. We end up making quick work of Diodorus. In death, he calls out to his Lord Dinger, and that's it. As you may have guessed from the game's title, Babylon's Fall pulls from Mesopotamian and Sumerian mythology. There's the aforementioned Dinger, the Sumerian gender-neutral word for deity, employed here as a proper noun. Nurgle and Ereshkigal are here too. Spoilers, not as husband and wife gods, but as members of a hostile alien race. There's also a bunch of Greek proper nouns in here too, used to similar effect. Essentially, this is just seasoning and doesn't really match up with the mythology at all. You know, like how Final Fantasy changed Bahamut from a big old fish to a big old dragon, or Gilgamesh, pulled from Sumerian mythology, turned into a kabuki-tinged samurai. Or, you know, any number of instances where a creative team opens the big book of world mythology and picks names at random. This isn't damning in itself. Great artists steal, yada yada. But in this instance, it kind of feels like Babylon's Fall couldn't commit to its own bit. When you're not tackling a mission in Babylon's Fall, you're in the hub town, a small district bordering the docks. This is most definitely not the nice part of town, which is gated off and never entered over the course of the game. The hub is essentially a ghetto for the lower classes, which includes all Sentinels, regardless of skill or merit. We're introduced to Lady Sophia, daughter of the Emperor and our commanding officer. She makes our roles abundantly clear. The Gideon coffin, useful as it can be, provides insurance. Not unlike a death collar in any of your favorite battle royale mysteries, the coffin will fill up your body with poison if you disobey orders, try to run away, or try to remove it. Gallagher gets a little sassy with Sophia, and she does not hesitate to torture him to inspire you to get to work. We also meet Isham face to face. He's some sort of mad scientist blacksmith studying the Galu, and despite his first impressions, he's less sinister than he is comic relief.
Sorry, it's only old Isham. Surprised you, did I?
When he's not barking orders at you the second you get off the prison boat, he's really just there to be silly. Isham has his own little workshop in the corner of the hub, but amusingly, you don't gain access to it until after the credits roll. Rounding out the cast is Pygmalion and Galatea. Get it? Get it?
Oh, welcome.
Yeah, welcome to the Dying Dolphin, maggots!
Now, Galatea, how could you say such a thing? I beg your pardon. Galatea is a bit of a diamond in the rough. My name is Pygmalion. Should you need anything at all, don't hesitate to ask.
I wonder if these maggots can even use what you've got!
A pair of ambiguously human/robot merchants who sell you the battle pass or some starting equipment that will quickly become outpaced. They frequently chime in when you're on missions to bicker with each other and flirt with Sylvie.
I know a trick to keep you from getting wet, Sylvie.
Lady Galatea, do you really think you should tell her?
Quiet, Scarecrow! Sylvie needs a bit of help.
Well, tell me, what is it, Lady Galatea?
Just use slow on those puddles. Do that, and you can run right over them like a water strider.
Wonderful! I'll just stroll right over the surface.
Just don't ask me how it works.
They suck and I really hate them. And then finally there's Lycus, a little waiter boy afflicted with a condition called the Blue Death, caused by Babylon's blue sun, which causes blue veins to trace across his blue face.
That's why the Imperials are always coming and going. But we common folk don't have anywhere else to go. Except the grave, I suppose. And when the Blue Death finally takes all Neo-Babylon.
He looks like Edward Scissorhands, sounds like a 12-year-old, and he's got one really big arm that goes unremarked upon. I guess it would be rude to do so. Lycus's deal is he looks sickly and sad while serving food. Believe it or not, he's central to the overarching plot. Lady Sophia and Isham believe that if the Sentinels venture to the top of the tower to destroy the Blue Sun, the Blue Death will be eradicated, Lycus will be spared. Sylvie feels particularly strongly about saving her favorite little waiter boy. So here we are in the first mission. There's quite a bit of dialogue from Sylvie and Gallagher with the suggestion that they're on the mission with you, I guess so you don't feel lonely.
Awfully quiet, isn't it?
God, I hate it here. It's the smell.
But they're most definitely not there. You're probably alone in this tower because you probably couldn't matchmake, and you're hearing the voices of these phantoms around you. They chime in to lambast the game design from time to time. There's a bit where you have to pull a switch to make a spire raise up in the air, providing passage forward. Gallagher remarks,
Why the hell would anyone waste time making something that's new?
oof. Compared to the beta, the full game tightens the controls ever so slightly and tweaks enemy hit point levels, but the end result is still the same. Combat encounters always boil down to button mashing. In fact, it's not even really a masher, because you can just hold the face buttons down to do an endless combo. Some of the battles have these environmental hazards, like boulders raining down and lightning strikes. They're telegraphed with an AoE warning, so you'd think a valid strategy would be to lure your enemies into them, but they're not bothered a lick. They only hurt players. At the end of each combat encounter, you get graded, Platinum style. This is another odd system. Whenever I felt I did well, I was awarded Stone, the lowest possible rank. So I threw caution to the wind, mashing buttons, tanking hits, and soon I found I was getting the highest rank, pure Platinum, 9 times out of 10. Apparently this is governed by time. A battle completed quickly, even if you're the sloppiest little hog, grants you such a boon of points that the rest of your performance does not matter in the slightest. Even after observing this, I was confused further that my lengthy, sloppy boss battles also granted me pure Platinum, every single time without fail. I never felt I truly figured out how to play this game, but you know what, I'm gonna take this one. I'm a Babylon's Fall master. Put it on my resume, arrest me immediately. I'm not okay, and I can't take care of myself. You pound your way through this first leg of the tower. Lady Sophia gets kidnapped by a Galu named Talos, and you gotta go get the cruel Aristo back. You head into the Senate Assembly Hall, and this is where we have our first boss battle. Wearing a golden mask, Talos is a gigantic, grotesque soldier in unimaginable pain. He's reminiscent of the huge knight from the 2019 trailer. Sophia addresses him as Xenon, and says that the Emperor will bestow mercy upon him. As it turns out, Talos, or Xenon, was the captain of the Imperial Guard, as well as one of the first Sentinels. I hung out in this corner and I fired arrows at him for about 30 minutes. Got my pure Platinum. In death, Xenon has a warning for us.
Naught but 2 paths lie ahead. Ascend to the heavens above the tower, or fall. like this one now before you.
Like clockwork, Gallagher falls to his knees in pain.
Shit. I was sloppy. This must be the Energeia.
Gallagher?
His coffin is surging pain through him. Soon he becomes a red and blue berserk monster man.
Oh god, he's shifting. Gallagher!
And just as he's about to kill Sylvie, Lady Sophia clips him, and he runs away with superhuman agility. Gallagher has become a rogue Ixion, and public enemy number 1. Sophia demands his immediate execution, and he disappears for the next several hours. But this is what we're dealing with. The Gideon's coffin is somehow made of the same material as the Blue Sun, and some Sentinels just can't hack it and turn into monsters. Usually you get a little bit of plot after a mission, often in these little non-cutscenes of static screenshots with a voiceover. They're shown framed on a gallery wall, which is supposed to have this painterly vibe, but the framing is terrible, and there's never an eye-catching moment. No chiaroscuro, just little dolls against a bland background. Oh look, you get the idea. Each area consists of 4 or 5 levels, the final level being a big boss battle. You'll fight a cult of fantasy Jim Baker charlatans who claim they can cure the Blue Death, but they're just stealing money and hope from the people. Cool body horror here, though.
Wait, what the hell is happening?
And then there's your lava and ice zones, back to back, naturally, where you fight dragons and kill Lycus's dad, but then you get him a new dad, so it's okay. And here's where we start seeing the Souls influence. Here's a soulless, pardon the pun, ripoff of Demon Souls Boletaria 1-2. Here's a big naked spider lady with a big butt. Not Quelaag, we promise. This one has a beef boy attached to it, too. You get this cutscene where Lycus's new dad says he'll distract it so you can attack it from behind, but since NPCs never actually take part in combat, that's not what happens at all, and you just battle it as you would any other foe. Hey look, she's got a skull inside of her butt. This one took me about 20 minutes alone, and ended with a cutscene of your NPC buddies landing the killing blow. Come on, give me some credit for this one. Once you fight your way to the top of the tower, things start getting a little interesting. The sky shatters, revealing it was a massive TV screen covering a high-tech world of wires and electronics. This is where Babylon's Fall grabbed me. This is a major paradigm shift. What could it mean? Well, before you can find out, Galu have invaded the rest of the tower with their designs on the town, so back you go, all the way to the bottom, fighting higher level missions in all of the areas you've already been through. Nothing really new happens, no big unique bosses, just variations on the standard end of mission stable you've been fighting this whole time. Story really falls off a cliff, and there's rarely any plot or cutscenes to speak of during this extended section. But we fight them all, and finally make our way back to the TV innards world of Elysium. Our foes are now mech suits, robot dogs, and robot scorpions. Turns out Galu were once people, citizens of Babylon and former Sentinels, taken to this mechanical realm for processing into enemies of mankind. The why is never really explained, but hey, I usually find this kind of thing fun. It's alright. So we meet Nurgle, androgyne alien lifeform, ruler of the Gallo. This is the final boss, and this really isn't a battle that you're expected to fight alone. Nurgle teleports all over the place, splits into duplicate forms, and transitions into phases in which they can only be damaged for a very short amount of time. You're really expected to have a full party here, but seeing as I couldn't matchmake, I had to tough it out alone over a 40-minute period. It wasn't particularly challenging. I didn't die once. It just took forever as I had to chase them all over the place and deplete their giant life bar alone. It was a lot. And that's the main campaign of Babylon's Fall. You blow up the blue sun, the blue death is indeed halted, and your breathy-voiced companion bursts out of you. She becomes the new sun. You did it! Roll credits. Naturally, that's not the real end. In fact, the real Babylon's Fall has only just begun. Well, maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration, but it's in the post-credits when they finally unlock crafting, some race-specific combat abilities teased all the way back during character creation, and a quad of new mission types. Skirmishes, which are just extra missions, sieges, time-limited super challenges, gauntlets, which are massive battles with restrictions on healing and reviving, and duels, one-on-one battles with souped-up versions of the bosses you fought previously. By the time I reached this point, it was already January 2023, about 7 weeks from permanent shutdown. What does one do when faced with the end of the world? I guess you just keep playing. See if you can get the prestigious Platinum trophy, and generally bask in the frivolousness. Tears and rain, dust and wind. The Season 3 Battle Pass had just ended, with a notice from Square-Enix to prepare for the grand finale. I thought maybe they'd make a free Battle Pass and rain down some ephemeral, game-breaking goodies and useless cosmetics on players who stuck it out for the final few weeks. On that note, frankly, I thought they might re-release the game as free-to-play for the final hurrah. Instead, well, nothing really happened. They added a new super hard final boss challenge and a leaderboard with the stipulation that no in-game rewards would be granted due to the looming end. The game remained unpurchasable, so the bab-by curious would have to track down a disc if they wanted a look-in. I settled some skirmishes, dabbled in duels, and was a goner in the gauntlets. I could never really handle the sieges. The gear level requirements were incredibly high straight off the bat. I could start one, but I'd get curb-stomped immediately, and you better believe I still couldn't matchmake with anybody. For the final week, they actually took sieges out entirely, making it impossible to complete the full set of weekly missions. Really incredible decision there, guys. Fortunately, there was more story campaign, so I had something to work through. Plus, there were still some dangling threads. The central cast are treated so poorly by Lady Sophia and Babylon's ruling body that you'd expect a rebellion plot to pop up. And pop it does, but you're the one tasked with putting it down. Gallagher and his Ixian forces resurface to tear down the hegemony, and only you can stop him. But then Immortan Joe and his gang roll into town, here to fight Gallagher himself, but he's a jerk, and there's some kind of weird racial essentialism where he and his countrymen are portrayed as violent savages without honor. It's pretty gross. So you end up partnering with Gallagher for a bit to kick his butt, but Gallagher still has his designs on crushing the Babylonian Empire, which is the right thing to do. So you have to kill him and all of his friends to uphold this violent and exploitative status quo. Yeah, alright. I reached the end of this story arc and, well, now that everybody in town was only capable of saying dummy, I figured I must have reached the end of content, or maybe the game was just bullying me for sticking with it for so long. As it so happens, this wasn't the end, and there was a whole third story campaign to run through. This third story is about Lady Sophia seeking a load of guns from some visiting foreign dignitaries. They'll give you all the guns you can eat, but only if you go to their desert kingdom and destroy the White Sun, which is causing all kinds of maladies. I should probably mention at this point that the second and third campaigns ostensibly take place in separate towers, but all campaigns use the maps from the very first campaign wholesale. The characters may tell you you're visiting a tower in a vast desert, but it's the exact same cloisters and paths you've been through time and time again. You fight your way through, make it to the top, which is, once again, a techno-robot lab, and one of the dignitaries transforms into a Reshkagal. You fight her as the final boss, which is also just basically the Nurgle fight again. I wasn't looking forward to slogging through this one, so I put off this final step for as long as I could. Finally, the day arrived. February 27th, 2023. The last day of service. I was under the impression that the game was shutting down at midnight Greenwich Mean Time, because that's what the Babylon's Fall news page told me every time I booted the game. So I took to Twitch that evening to broadcast the final few hours. Somewhere along the way, the news page updated its information, clarifying that no, the servers would be up until the morning of the 28th. This was more than I could promise. I had work the next morning. I couldn't stay up all night streaming Babylon's Fall. So I hung on for the better part of 3 hours, with a view to tackle a Reshkagal in the process. But then something wonderful happened.
Oh, yes! Orpheus, my man! Fed Babylon and beyond. Yes! Hi to you too!
Against all odds, I finally managed to matchmake, and we ended up fighting the final boss together. Oh, he's dressed in fucking 9S, isn't he? Look at that!
I didn't get to 9S it. I'm just a pantsless fool.
Oh no, I forgot to like him! Oh jeez. Oh, that's a faux pas. Orpheus, you were an MVP. And I didn't give you the like. Oh, I'm so sorry. I stunted on him. I didn't mean to. Somehow, we managed to be the #1 Babylon's Fall stream in the whole world that evening. It wasn't hard, though.
I feel so bad after that. I might be.
But I wasn't quite done yet. I really wanted to see what the final few hours would be like. Would there be some kind of grassroots event? How would people celebrate? Maybe I could matchmake again. I had to know. The problem was, I don't think Babylon's Fall knew. I was getting conflicting information from the game that the servers would shut off at either 6:59 or 7:59. I saw both of these times floating around without any clarification to which was the actual cutoff. I didn't really want to wake up before 6 a.m. on a workday to head right into the final hours of Babylon's Fall of all things, so I figured it would be 7:59. That's 11:59 Pacific time. Probably the kind of time you'd shut down your game, right? So I logged on at the stroke of 7 a.m. and...
I missed it. I missed it. Cause it shut down at 7. That's it.
The entire point of my mission, what everything was leading up to, gone because I didn't want to wake up. Apparently there were some impromptu player events, mostly people dancing in town, trying to fit in the odd high-level quest where they could. It actually sounded kind of heartwarming, and I was sad to have missed it. But maybe the very last moment in the world of Babylon wasn't the point after all. Maybe everything leading up to this moment was the real takeaway. The fact that after a solid 4 months, I finally managed to matchmake with some other desperados in the game's final day. There's truly something magical about that. If I'd aided them in having a fun evening at the end of the world, well, that's all that matters, really. So, farewell Babylon's Fall. Incomplete mess. 60-pound free-to-play nightmare. You didn't try your best. You were the worst PlayStation 5 game. A printed disc that will forever boot to a server's undergoing maintenance message for maintenance that will never come. Despite all this, I do feel warmly about our time together. I'd send you a message of thanks, but you locked your Twitter down. In the immortal words of the poet Donald Fagen, this is no one-night stand. It's a real occasion. Close your eyes and you'll be there. It's everything they say. The end of a perfect day. Distant lights from across the bay. Babylon sisters, shake it. Oh, okay. Second time recording this because my microphone was out of whack. What a joy. But if you've watched this long, thank you very, very much. These videos take a lot of work. Quite a bit more than I initially thought they would. So I really, really appreciate anybody who would come on this trip with me. And even if you just ducked in, thank you. It's really tough to juggle? It's really tough to juggle video production with a full-time job. I would like to get these out on a slightly more regular basis, though. And a great way to help make that happen would be to like and subscribe. I know I've only really just started on this journey, but knowing that there's folks out there who these videos resonate with would be a big inspiration. A very special thank you to EnemyPirin for setting me up with a physical copy of the game. Without his dedication to my own misery, this one would not have been possible. Oh, shout out to the NURV stream community over on Twitch, especially since they made us the top Babylon's Fall stream in the whole wide world on the final night of service. They are a very supportive and funny community, very diverse, very inclusive. If you would like to join them in watching me get tilted at bad games, you would be most welcome. So yeah, I think that's about it. This picture that Justina took of me holding up the Babylon's Fall box art is my mission statement. I think I inadvertently look like Joe Swinson being mad at Easter eggs here. What do you guys think? Sound off in the comments.